Hey friends, welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in.
Melanie Shankle is a 3 times New York best-selling author of Here Be Dragons, Sparkly Green Earrings, The Antelope in the Living Room, and Nobody's Cuter Than You. She speaks at events nationwide and co-hosts the wildly popular podcast, The Big Boo Cast. Melanie and her husband, Perry, live in San Antonio, Texas, and are the parents of Caroline. We are so excited to share this conversation with our dear friend and fellow Mexican food lover, Melanie Shankle.
Melanie, we are delighted to be with you always. And today is a special day because we realized you are the first 3-timer on our podcast. And if this were SNL, we'd be bringing you a jacket right now.
Oh, listen.
In celebration of this. First.
Wow. I feel so honored. Oh my gosh. I had no idea.
We're
like
so
I'm
excited.
the Steve Martin of the Raising Boys and Girls podcast.
You are indeed. You're that enjoyable.
Yeah,
listen,
that funny.
So for anyone who's been living under a rock, because you can't get in close proximity to us and not find out about you because we love you so much. But will you talk about how you found your way to the work you're doing these days, and you just make this world a better and funnier place?
Listen, y'all are the sweetest. Y'all are 2 of my very favorite people. I couldn't wait to talk to y'all today. I found my way to this weird world through a mommy blog that I started back in 2005. When my daughter, I'm about to say something that's going to make us all feel really old, but when my daughter Caroline was not quite 3, I decided to start writing a blog. She is now 21 and is going to graduate from college this year. But I wrote every day on my blog. It was kind of my young mom outlet, safe place, happy place. And man, God just used it in ways I couldn't have imagined to just bring me the dearest friends and the best readers. And it translated into, I think 2008 was the first time somebody reached out, an agent, and was like, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, I have, but that seems really hard. And so I don't know that I want to. And then,
you still feel that way?
I do still feel that way. I don't know why. I do every time. But then in 2012, my first book came out and it was called Sparkly Green Earrings, and it was about being a mom. And so since then I've written 5 other books. I think this new book coming out is my 6th trade book.
Wow.
So, and then I have a podcast that I do with my friend Sophie Hudson. And it just kind of all led to things I couldn't have even imagined and brought me in proximity to you guys who I never would have met if not for the internet blog world.
So great.
And Dot Mom.
You're
one of our favorite things to come out of Dot Mom days for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Dot Mom. That was, what a gift. So what a gift.
Well, if you're listening right now, we want you to go to Amazon or pause and go to your local bookstore, buy every one of her books because we cannot recommend them highly enough. And
so sweet.
You need to subscribe, join Patreon, all the things for Big Boo Cast because it is the best. We all need to be laughing more in this world. The combination of laughter and wisdom, I mean, there's just nothing better, and hope that y'all bring. And so, sign up for all the things.
That's what we do. We're trying to help everybody come up for a little air, where life just feels so heavy and the world can feel so hard. It's like if we can just, find the things that we do agree on and things that we can laugh about and the absurd, then that's what we're trying to do.
Well, and one of the things we were just laughing about before we started recording officially was dogs.
Yes.
And your house is a little different. I mean, you're a few years into this empty nesting thing, but I know you've got noisy dogs, but the house is quieter.
The house is quiet. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a weird stage. I mean, and I'm 4 years in. You know what I mean? Like
it feels weird, Sam.
It still feels weird. I mean, when Caroline drove back, she's our only child, and when she left to leave for Christmas, and I thought, am I ever going to not cry when she pulls out of the driveway? And she said, she was like, you're literally going to see me tomorrow, which was true. I was driving up there the next day to help her put some shelves together and do some stuff she needed to do. But it's just something about like knowing that isn't ever going to be the same again is just, and it went so fast, you know, like I know if you're a young mom, you're like, does it really feel like it's going fast? But I mean, when you look back, you're like, man, that went fast.
Do you, I mean, based off of that, is there anything you wish you had known or that you would have said to yourself when it started? The empty nesting.
Oh, man. I don't know. I mean, I think here's what I'll say. I think empty nesting has been better than I thought. Like, I think there's still so much life and joy and fun on this side of it. And even though we don't live together and she's not under our roof, like, I do have to say this is one of my favorite stages of parenting. Like, I do feel like having an adult child and she's kind of an adult with training wheels, I guess, right now, you know, but like, there's something like, I had no idea that this side of parenting, like what I would tell young moms in the thick of it is like, man, it's so worth it to like dial in and to do the hard stuff and to hold the line, because if you produce these like fantastic kids that you love being with, like what a gift. And like to get to see, it's like, these are almost the years of like, okay, here's the payoff. Here's the payoff for all the dirty work along the way. And so I think there's something really sweet to that.
That's beautiful and
beautiful.
rich.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk your new book, which we absolutely love. And we have to read this. You have this on your website. It's so good. It needs to be read as it is. You said, writing this book nearly killed me. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. It brought up feelings and memories that I really prefer to stay buried way down deep, because digging up all your painful childhood memories is a 1-star experience. Do not recommend.
So good.
It's so good.
And true.
So true. So first off, will you tell us, why did you decide to go ahead and write it? And what do you believe that God was wanting to reveal in this season through it?
Oh man, I think so many things. I mean, like it feels like it's almost coming off in layers. So this was the book, Here Be Dragons. I had the title for this book probably 4 years ago. But what I thought this book was going to be was about becoming an empty nester and about Caroline and, you know, kind of her experience dealing with mean girls in high school. That was it. And I always knew, though, because I had this difficult relationship with my mother, and I knew the generational cycles that my husband Perry and I had very intentionally set out to break in our family when we got married. So I kind of always knew that someday I would tell that book. I would tell that story. I would write it. I knew it was in there. I knew that God was going to have me do that at some point. I used to joke and say the name of that book was going to be Now That Everybody Has Died. Because, you know, I mean, there's just,
that.
you know, but I will say that life came together after I signed the contract for this book. Life took a turn, and, you know, God does what he does. And it was like, oh, I can write this book now. So I don't know if people are like, is it a spoiler? But my mom passed away as I was beginning to start this book. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm free to tell this story now. And it was actually Sophie, my podcast partner, who was formerly an English teacher and is always my first editor and first reader, that was like, and she had been a counselor at her girls' school or at her Christian school where she had worked. And she said, hey, do you see the thread from where you had to heal and get healthy to be able to raise Caroline to be equipped to deal with what she had to deal with in a healthy way? And I was like, oh, and she was like, I think that's your book. You've got to tell your story. And I can't even tell you, like, I think I put my head between my knees and was like, oh God, I don't know that I'm ready, because I knew it was going to dig up a lot of stuff that you kind of, I mean, I'm kind of I tend to look on the bright side and I want to focus on the happy and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, this is going to take me right back to some of this stuff. And I will say, and y'all will appreciate, I'm like, this is the book that sent me for the first time in my life at 53 years old to therapy. Because it just opened up some stuff that I was like, I need to go talk to somebody about this. Because you just start to see the ways that maybe you are healed, but you aren't healed to the fullness that God intends to heal you.
And now a quick break to hear from one of our incredible sponsors who make the podcast available.
Okay, David, we are both trying to be healthier. I have a great tool I'm excited to tell you about. It's called Function.
Do you remember that song we learned in elementary school? Conjunction, junction, what's your function?
Yes, but let me tell you about this kind of function. Function is an all-in-one health platform that starts with over 100 advanced lab tests covering your entire body. heart, hormones, liver, kidneys, thyroid, autoimmunity, cancer signals, toxins, nutrients, and more.
Well, sign me up.
I'm excited about the Mastering Stress and Optimizing Hormones tests.
I need help with the food and emotions. I have a lot of both, and appetite control.
Your first set of tests helps establish a baseline of your health, giving you a starting point to compare future tests against. This makes it easy to spot changes, even subtle ones, and address them proactively.
It's for all ages and genders. Health is universal. Function Health is for anyone who wants to understand their body better and make informed decisions for a longer, healthier life.
Function currently has a wait list, but they are offering our audience the chance to skip it.
Head to functionhealth.com/RBG or enter code RBG when signing up to skip the wait list. And now back to the show.
Will you talk a little, you don't have to talk about your therapy, but will you talk a little bit about that? I mean, thinking about generational trauma, which a lot of us have experienced, how do you heal from it? What does that look like? I think counseling's been part of it for you, it sounds like.
Yeah, it has. And I think, I think it comes in layers because it's funny because I write about it in the book. And as I was writing it, I really did think, oh, here are the ways that God has healed me from that. And I think, first of all, you have to recognize it. I think, and that started for me when I was in college, where you start to realize, because I always say, and y'all probably know this because of what you do, or you probably see this. Like I always say, something has to be really wrong in a kid's life for them to know something's wrong. Like I think your childhood seems so normal to you because you're so self-focused that you're not paying attention to other people's families or their interactions. So I feel like for me, it wasn't until I got to college and started going home with friends and started to kind of think about starting my own family someday and what that would look like, that you start to look around and go, well, this is very different than the way I was raised, or this person's relationship with her mom is very different than my relationship with my mom. And so it started to open up my eyes. So I think that was that. And I think my faith really became real to me when I was 21 years old. And I think that was a huge step in like letting God come in and heal some of the brokenness that was in me and the ways that I'd tried to cope with that and deal with it. And then, and then there were layers. And then I think when I got married, that was another layer of here are some things that have to heal. And then I think when I became a mom, there were more layers of that. And then when Caroline became a teenager, I mean, it's just such a process of overcoming those things. And then I think in writing the book, it was just digging that stuff up where I still realized how many of those behaviors that I still go back to, like that people pleasing in me and that feeling of that I still am trying to make everybody happy all the time. And I think even when Perry read the book, and y'all, we've been married 28 years. We've been together for 30. I mean, he's lived most of my adult life with me at this point. But even after he read the book, he said, oh, now I get it why you don't like when I have an over-the-top reaction to something. He was like, this makes sense to me. But I'd never been able to say, like, hey, and here's the thing about Perry. When we're having like a real fight, he's never one time raised his voice to me. But what I say, like if the can opener doesn't work, he may throw it down the street. It's like these. And Caroline is the same way. Like they're both very passionate and they have a lot of feelings. And so they'll kind of just have this explosion of feelings. And I think for both of them, they've realized like, oh, this is why mom doesn't handle that well, because it takes me back to that place in my childhood where I don't feel safe, even though I'm so safe with both of them. And so you just start to realize those things that you think are healed. And I think that's the whole thing is like, because I do have this, happy, good marriage and this daughter that I'm so proud of, and we have such a great relationship. And so you feel like, well, that's taken care of it all. But you're like, but there's still things deep down that you kind of have to process for yourself and figure out why you are the way that you are.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Melanie, you said that breaking the cycles of your past can help build your daughter's future. Will you talk more even about what that means?
I mean, I just think all of us, like if you look at kind of what you grew up in, for all of us, there's probably something because, I mean, here's what we all know as parents. We're all doing the best we can, but there's stuff that we've gotten wrong. There's been stuff that we've apologized to Caroline for. I'm like, you know what? We were way too intense about soccer. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have done that. That was our stuff, but it's just recognizing anything that maybe was a pattern in the way you grew up or the way you were raised or the way you deal with things that you're like, you know what, this isn't something that I want to perpetuate going forward.
Mm.
Like, this is not healthy. And I want to equip my child or my children to do better, And I think every generation, if we do that, hopefully you do it a little bit better and a little bit more faithfully, to where you create something healthier than what you came from.
Thank you.
Love that.
So,
Well, speaking of Caroline
mhm.
and raising a daughter, what do you wish you had known in the beginning about the journey of raising a girl?
Oh man. So many things. I think number one, I think as a mom, I think early on, I really thought, you think if you're having a daughter, I was like, well, this is going to be so easy. This is just a miniature version of myself. She's right. She's a girl. I'm a girl. We're going to, and pretty early on, I mean, from about the time any part of her personality was visible, I was like, oh, we are not the same. Like, she is so much more like her dad in the way that she's wired. And in some ways, I've told her, and this is an interesting thing, because she is very much an Enneagram 8. Perry is an Enneagram 8. I'm an Enneagram 9. I'm a people pleaser. I'm whatever. But I do have this 8 wing that comes out when it's something that I'm passionate about. But I have looked back at my childhood, and this is something I've looked at where I'm like, how much of an 8 would I have been if I had felt safe to be an 8?
Wow.
Like, I wasn't allowed to have those feelings and to voice what I didn't like or whatever. And Caroline has been, I mean, she's grown up in this like safe environment. So, I think the biggest thing is to totally embrace who God has created your child to be and all their unique differences, that they're not going to be just like you, that they're going to handle things differently than you. I mean, even when Caroline was going, and I write about this in the book, when she was going through her mean girl stuff in high school, I kept saying, just take the high road, just be kind, just be the bigger person. You just need to do this. Cause I was like, let's just keep it all down. And it finally, after months of it going on, there was a day that she came home and Perry said, hey, they're not relenting. So this is war. He was like, it's okay to fight back. And I watched everything in her come alive, because that's what she needed to hear, was like, you don't have to be passive. Like, you can, you don't have to be mean, but you can defend yourself and you don't have to just take it. So it's just recognizing, to me, I wish I would have known more the ways that she is different from me, even though we are the same sex.
Melanie, thinking about the season you're in and the wisdom you've gained, just what would you want to say to a young mom right now?
The biggest thing is that all the hard work is worth it. Like, as much as I feel like in this world, to raise a kind, God-fearing, spiritually, mentally, emotionally healthy child requires so many things that I feel like have become so countercultural in a lot of ways. And so it can be really hard. I think it can be really hard too. And I've said with Caroline, there were so many times where, like, on a Friday or Saturday night, because the choices that she made to not drink and to not be part of a crowd she knew she shouldn't be a part of or whatever, it meant that she was sitting on the couch with us. And like, as a mom, I would be like, well, this just does not feel right. Because what you want your kid to have is like, well, I wanted her high school experience to look like Greece. I wanted there to be a carnival and like fun and like all the stuff. And like, it doesn't look like this. But number one, you realize that as a parent, there are so many things that we take on, that we're projecting our feelings onto our kids that aren't really even feelings that they have. Like, really looking back, she was like, I was fine with it. Like, it wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And she was like, and it made me closer to you and dad, and we had good times and it was fine. But every bit of hard work that it takes to parent and to raise those kids and to hold your line and to say, I'm not giving you social media till you're this age. And we're not going to be, part of a group that's going to allow and enable drinking at these parties. And we're not going to do these things. It's so worth it, because I look at who Caroline is at 21 and the young woman she's become. And it's like, man, it was worth it. Like, even at the times where it felt so hard, and even the struggles that she went through, because I think that's what's so hard, is you want to put your kids ideally in this like protective bubble of like, I don't want anything to hurt them, and I don't want their heart to ever be broken, and I don't want anything bad to ever happen. But you're like, those are the things that are forging iron in their soul that they're going to need. I mean, those are the very things. I mean, all those prayers I prayed as a young mom, like, God, make her a leader, make her bold, make her brave. I didn't know what God was going to have to do in her life to create those things.
Yes.
So if you're praying those prayers for your kids, just know they're probably not going to have the easiest path.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what God's going to be able to do in them and through them is more than worth it.
And please pray those things for your kids.
It's what we need. Yeah,
Yes.
it's what we need.
We did a podcast interview earlier today with Esau McCauley,
Mm-hmm.
and he said something. I wrote it down immediately we were done. We've been talking about it, that he said, if you can't change the world for your kids, prepare your kids for the world.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
exactly.
Because you can keep them in a bubble for a certain amount of time, but the world is coming for them. And so, there's a whole thing, and I did not say this, but I read it somewhere. It was like, don't apologize for raising a dragon slayer in a time of dragons. And I'm like, that's
so
it.
good.
They're going to have to be like, because, I look at Caroline and I'm like, the real world is coming for her. And I'm
Yes.
glad that she's already learned some hard lessons about people's motivations and that sometimes things just don't turn out the way you want and you have to regroup. And sometimes God closes a door that you really wished had stayed open. But you just have to trust that he's working it all together for your good.
Yes. And now we're going to take a little break to hear from one of our sponsors who makes this podcast possible.
Sissy, I just did a serious update on my home office. It needed a refresh. And I'm not going to say any names, but someone had peed on my carpet.
Uh-oh. Well, someone who shall remain nameless did that at my house as well. But it's a good thing our puppies are so cute because it makes it easier to deal with these little messes.
Your messes are little, but remember, I have a Labrador Retriever. They are not little messes, but thanks to Wayfair, I'm covered. I ordered a new leather chair, a lamp, table, and rug. They outfitted the entire space. Wayfair's got everything you need, all within your budget.
Whatever you need, furniture, kitchen essentials, storage and organization, even dog essentials.
Do they sell dog training?
That's on you, but there's something for every style, every home, and every budget. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now.
That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home.
And now back to our show. Well, thinking about the generational trauma you talk about and the things that you don't want to pass down.
Yeah.
There's so much you have passed down. And as you think about that and think about her becoming an adult, what do you want to have passed down? What do you want her to have inherited from you?
Oh, I think strength. I mean, I think strength to walk away from people in situations that aren't healthy, which I've seen, and that's been great. And there have even been situations where she said to me, like, you didn't go through what you went through for me to put myself in this unhealthy situation. Like, there's been places where she's already been able to do that and seen it because we had very honest conversations. Like, as she was, age appropriate, I would say, here are some things that I went through and here are some things that I've learned. So I think strength, I think kindness, I think loving Jesus, what it means to be a good friend, what it means to walk with integrity, to pour out your life, to live in the service of others. And how can I make the world a better place and people better than I found them? I mean, to me, those are what we want,
That's so good. Melanie, we love to ask you just, what do you think kids need most from their parents today?
Honestly, I think they just need you to show up, like to show up and to show up as healthy as you can be. I mean, because I do think that there are all these things. If we live in a way that's fearful or timid, then we're teaching our kids be fearful and timid. If we live in a way where they see us ruled by our anxiety, they're going to be ruled by their anxiety. I mean, I think we just project so many things that we don't even realize. So it's like, where can you be healthier and what do you need to do that? And then to pour that out in your kids and let them see you show up healthy and whole in their lives. I mean, they just need to know. I was just telling two young moms that are in kind of a little Bible study that I do who have younger kids yesterday. And I said, they were talking about vacations and all this stuff. And I said, y'all, I'm telling you on this side of it, I said, the stuff that they remember is like that we sat around the table at dinner and talked, or, that y'all were there for my soccer game and took me out to eat afterwards. Or it's just the day to day, like, I see you, I love you, I value you. That's what matters.
Yes, that's such a good reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all the people that are going to rush out to buy your book, where can they find it and where can they find you? And they all need to be following you on all the social things too. So will you tell them?
Sweet. You can buy the book anywhere books are sold. So whatever your favorite indie bookstore is, your online bookstore, whatever that happens to be, it's available everywhere books are sold in all formats. I read the audio. So if you're listening to my Texas accent
you
and
want
think,
that.
man, I want to listen to that for 8 hours, then God bless you in that. So
and it's called Here Be Dragons.
Here Be Dragons, Treading the Deep Waters of Motherhood, Mean Girls, and Generational Trauma. And so it's available, just a lighthearted book, just a lighthearted, feel-good book.
A book that certainly is so needed in this world. I'm so grateful.
I mean, that's what I hope. That's what I hope. So, and then the best place to find me is on Instagram. I mean, I post different places. You can go to my blog, which is at melanieshankle.com. And I'll post our podcast stuff there. You can find me at the Big Boo Cast, wherever you listen to your podcast, on Spotify or podcast app or whatever. And I'm just Melanie Shankle on Instagram. And so that's where I spend most of my social media time.
We end every conversation with something food related, and you are one of our all-time favorite folks to share some Mexican food with you. You have so much expertise in that space. So we've asked you the taco question before. We just want to ask you today, like, what is your favorite Mexican food right now, or where should we be going?
Oh, listen, I mean, I'm in San Antonio, so it's the home of Mexican food. There is a place that Perry and I go almost every Friday night called El Catrine.
Ooh.
And they do this. It's called, listen, for you Nashville people, I feel bad for y'all because I'm about to say something that you're like, what? But it's the Tampaqueña de Res plate. And it comes with a flank steak that's like marinated with peppers and onions, and with a side of, you can get your enchilada however you want, but I always like a cheese enchilada. And like a bite of that steak with a bite of cheese enchilada is just about food perfection.
Oh, that makes me so hungry.
It's so good.
We both had a terrible salad for lunch.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Listen, it's salad season, but the next time y'all find your way to San Antonio, I will take you to El Catrine. We will get the Tampaqueña, and it will change your life.
We might show up on your doorstep tomorrow.
Anytime. Please do. Please do. Anytime.
Melanie, we love you. We are so grateful for you.
I'm so grateful for y'all. I'm just so grateful for all you do and the way you serve your community and the way that you're helping us all like raise our babies. I mean, we need that help. And so y'all's voice is so valued and so great. And I'm honored to get to be here with y'all today.
Our third person. We're coming with your jacket soon, the RBG instead of SNL. Yeah.
Yes,
it'll be cute and from Kay McCarthy.
Perfect. Even better. Even better.
We love you, Fred.
Best.
David, what a team we have that we get to call friends who help make this podcast possible.
Amanda Young, our operations manager.
Chris Starrett, our engineer.
Our management team at H Squared.
We are thrilled to be a part of the That Sounds Fun network.
Our music was created by the insanely talented Dave Haywood of Lady A.
And if this podcast felt helpful to you, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, all the things.
We are grateful for you and cheering you on always.